It's almost like
It's like the intranet.
It's like Liquid.
It's yeah, but it's instead of one for the entire world, we're talking about eventually 1 million.
Yeah.
So that you have it's like a side chain, but a million side chains. And because there's a trust dynamic where you have to trust the guardians, because the problem with any scaling solution is there's a natural desire for it to centralize. Having run an exchange, I realized that you can see liquidity begets liquidity. You naturally want to centralize. So if you go to a third party, you will end up with one huge exchange, and and that's why you have that. You see that right now with Binance, etc. But because there's a trust dynamic, because you need to know and trust the guardians, it never goes above a certain size. So if you want to scale, you have to form another. There's a natural incentive to form another federation, another federation, another federation. So you end up with this world where there are hundreds of thousands of millions of communities, each one able to have that superpower that normally is resigned to big tech and large exchanges, but in the hands of the community, where they can then choose and they can make the same decisions that normally they've abdicated to someone else who, often if it's a curly-haired guy in the Bermuda, it doesn't end well.
No, I think I get it now. So like previously I thought you were basically depositing, almost like you're handing me some Bitcoin. I was going, here's my Bitcoin and here's your denomination of it, and this is how much you've got. And then, but actually what's happening, it's a little bit more like Liquid. When you go into Liquid, you get LBTC. It's a 1-for-1 peg, essentially. And when you peg in, and then when you peg out, you get the same. It's essentially the same, but what you've really got is federations. They can form bridges to each other across the. So each one is a federation, but if there's a Lightning connection, these federations can bridge to each other.
And there's a massive incentive to have a Lightning
connection. Changes everything.
Yeah, there's a massive. So it's like, and by the way, Blockstream was the first person to see the genius of the idea of Eric, my co-founder, and they sponsored it for I think well over a year before I even heard of the protocol. So yes, there are a lot of similarities with that is a federation as well. Liquid is a federation,
but it's a closed one.
Yeah, but it's a federation as well. But it's one federation for every use case for the Liquid network. You can imagine each Fedimint is like a mini Liquid in that sense. And there are also each one can have different functionality. The way the functionality works in Fedimint, it uses Xiaomi and eCash as opposed to confidential transactions, and it has it's fully extensible. So you could add any application that you could in theory run on applications of a web server could in theory run on a Fedimint. So each community.
I'm going to give you a really terrible analogy. I'm going to say that Liquid is China and Fedimint is the USA, whereas each federation. My point being is, Liquid is a closed federation. You're in or you're out, and when you're in, you can share it there. Whereas you're like states. So like in America, you have separate states which you can move between. You're like separate states, and as long as there's a bridge or a motorway or an airport between the two, you can travel between the federations.
I would say that does Liquid a disservice because there's no technical reason why, and I believe people already do, where you could not have some sort of a bridge between Liquid and Bitcoin main chain or Liquid and the Lightning network as well. Okay. I guess that with Fedimint, it's just all baked in as standard, that you get it automatically. You know that it's just like when I say you get the Android app or you get your Windows PC or your macOS, and you know there are like several apps as standard, and you're always going to have eCash, and you're always going to have Bitcoin, and you're always going to have, and also really key, and it really makes it work. You're always going to have this Lightning integration.
Yeah.
Because think about it, if you're a Lightning node operator, you have to. If I have 1,000 different users, the first thing they're going to want to do is receive Bitcoin. Before they spend, they have to receive. So the way the Lightning Network works, if I connect to you to be able to provide you service, and my revenue stream is to earn fees from you, but the first thing I have to do is I have to lock up some Bitcoin in a channel for you to receive it in order for you to spend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you're getting it from family abroad or so on, I have to lock up. So I open up a channel with you, and you have no money, so I have to lock up Bitcoin to you. And let's say you've got 1,000 different users in a village, and average salary it could be like $10 a day, maybe less. But you think, okay, what's a reason about to lock up? Let's say $100 worth. Well, for 1,000 people, I'm now locking up $100,000 for $10,000, no, $100,000 for 1,000 different people, just in case they may need a deposit. And so there's a lot of capital locked up. And then some of them may use it, some of them may not, but I have to lock it up just in case. Otherwise, they try to do deposits. And if I've underguessed, I've only locked up $5 and they need 10, I'm going to have to do a second on-chain transaction because each one of those costs me money as well. Now, if compare that to a Fedimint, I need to open up one channel for the entire village, and I lock up an amount which I think is the average amount that I'm going to need on a daily basis, which will be a small fraction of that. I only need to lock up $1,000 or $2,000 to cover the entire village. And if I go over that, I only need to do one top-up transaction. So I get much, much higher capital efficiency for the same revenue. And actually, my costs go even lower because I'm doing far less on-chain transactions for the same revenue. So I make lower costs. My admin cost goes down as well because it's easier for me to manage. I don't have my channel rebalancing and predicting is less because to open up a channel on this side, on the Fedimint side, is zero cost and it takes 0 seconds. So I can always do it just in time at no cost. So this is why you see a lot of interest in Lightning service providers to work with us because we increase their revenues, reduce their costs, reduce their effort, which makes them more profitable, which means more capacity on the Lightning Network. I had a 4-hour conversation in Oslo Free Forum with Rene Pickard.
Oh, I love Rene.
And he's a great guy.
Yeah.
And one of his concerns was fee incentives. And he said, look, if we get broad-based deployment of Fedimints around the world, this could potentially go some way towards solving the fee challenges of scaling Lightning. And when I heard that, this was something I wasn't even thinking about at the time. It just made even more sense than it made before.
Yeah, but there's also there's an alternate risk there in that if you get broad, massive use of Fedimints, are you taking away on-chain transactions that provide the security once the block rewards have gone?
And I don't think so because you'll still need at some point
to settle.
You'll still need to settle. At some point, you will potentially build up a balance of eCash, and you would to be able to spend that or hold that in self-custody or balance between different federations or between different channels, you will have to withdraw that, and that will require the destruction of that eCash and an on-chain transaction.
The eCash
it will just be at a larger amounts. And even if the fees are higher, it's fine because you're now running this as a business and you're making profit, so you can cover the fee because you may have made $200 in fees, so you're happy to pay $50 on transactions.
Obi, I think the eCash thing throws me. The word eCash throws me, and I don't.
Then we shouldn't use it in this conversation.
Well, no, but when I say that, if it's throwing me, I think it might throw other people because in the idea, it's making me think there's another currency I'm getting. That's what it's making me think. Tell me if I'm wrong or you think
No, I think I was the same.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going and getting something else, but really I'm not. I'm just getting Bitcoin. But you're using the eCash to refer to the fact it's like a virtual Bitcoin. It's not actual Bitcoin.
It's still Bitcoin, but
it's
with different properties.
Yeah,
different properties, different trust dynamics, but different features. Some functionalities are increased, some are reduced.
Why do you use the term eCash then? Why don't you just say you get Bitcoin?
This is the technical term for what it is. And so this is where I think as we now move to the point to promote this globally, we are developing new language that just is just
do you know what I'm going to do?
More comfortable for just everybody to understand. But when you're talking to a technical community, eCash is the correct term.
No, I get that. And so I'm going to be interested. Do you know what I'm going to do? Is like anyone listening or watching on YouTube, just throw in the comments. Just I've never done this before, but like tell me if the eCash thing threw you. Either I'm a moron or not on my own. Well, not on my own because Danny's with me. Either we're morons or everyone else is confused by it. I just want to know, and I'll send you all the comments so you can see. But
I really appreciate it.
That's like a huge fundamental shift in me understanding it. Because like I say, I was under the impression you set up a federation, people put in Bitcoin, and you're basically creating your own currency. It's a bit like when banks, the free banks that we covered with Matthew earlier, you deposited gold and they gave you notes, but those notes were dollars. They weren't grams of, those notes weren't grams of gold. They were dollars. They were a representation. But this isn't, you're just getting sats and Bitcoin within it.
Within a closed system, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's a big change.
There are different, but to be for the sake of, because there'll be people who will be shaking at the screen. There are different, and it's the same between Lightning and Bitcoin. It's still Sats, but there are different trade-offs and trust assumptions being made. And the same happens again when you go to a Fedimint.
I'm cool with that. Okay, now we need to see it.
Okay.
So which one did you want to see? I think so. I just sent you a transaction. So do you want to? I think what would be interesting to see, and we can show you this at another time, is this is what, say, the Fedi app looks like. So,
Okay.
but before we do that, we have to understand. You first set up a federation, so a group of people. Bedford FC, Rail Bedford. Sorry, Rail Bedford. Apologies.
The auction room.
Yeah, the auction room.
No, Bedford the town. We set one up in the town.
So Rail Bedford wants to set up its own Fedimint, and you've got these people who work together, who trust each other. You already trust them right now. If people were going to could right now throw a game. Your defenders and your goalkeeper could throw a game and earn money from that, but they don't. But why do you? How do you trust that they don't? Because
there's if we were in the football league, that's a different story.
Imagine in a football league.
Yeah. I think there's a criminal risk.
But still, that's the risk with any. That's the same if you give the example of someone running off. There's always a criminal risk, but
they don't do it for two reasons, multiple reasons. One of the reasons they wouldn't do it is that their personal moral code doesn't want them to do that.
Yeah.
Their second one is there's no incentive. The incentive isn't big enough. And the third one is there's a criminal risk.
Yeah, so criminal risk,
which is then
moral
becomes
code,
reputational.
Let's say you get into
reputational risk.
Reputational risk, criminal risk, and you also mentioned that. But imagine also you're now in the sort of not Premier League, but you're getting there.
Career risk.
But you're now in the Premier League. The financial there is a financial incentive there at that point. So really, it's moral risk and criminal risk. So you've just explained it, and that's the key. In a community where you care about the others and individuals, there is social capital to be lost by doing something like this.
But SBF had moral and career risk, or moral and criminal risk, and took it, and now he's facing jail time.
So there's a difference. When you're dealing with, he's dealing with strangers. There are people at the other side of a computer terminal that he doesn't know, he doesn't have a relationship with. And also, if he did something to, he can continue on with his life. It doesn't, whereas if you're a part of a community, a close-knit community, you spent your life there, and then you do this, you can be ostracized from the community. You'll never be able to transact with anyone again. You'll never be able to work with anyone again. Imagine now, every time I want to buy something from anybody in that village or town.
You might be in Panama with cocktails.
Yes, but then you're dealing with amounts for which are very significant. But let's just say you're in a village or a community, you did this. Now, from now on, if I wanted to buy anything from anyone else in that community, I would always have to go somewhere else where my reputation hasn't been spread. There's a cost. There is a cost to do that when you have a second party relationship, i.e. your friends and family, which isn't the same when you're dealing with a person in the other side of the world.
Well, yeah, but there's always a trade-off, Obi. It will be the size of the honeypot and how far they have to go away to deal with that. Like if it's a small honeypot,
Which is why there's a natural limitation on how much it scales, which is why you end up with hundreds of thousands of Fedimints versus one large honeypot,
I get
which is a
that.
very good thing. We want something that naturally wants to be distributed and has limitations on how much concentration can happen. That trust dynamic solves the natural desire for systems to build up and focus liquidity into one place.
I think
you
it's
end
a
up with
non-zero.
multiple small.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. I think it's a non-zero risk though.
Yeah, of course, there's a non-zero risk, but there's also a non-zero risk that a lightning channel is not closed before someone else, a malicious actor, closes it. They're all non-zero risks.
Let me try and think of a better example. A federation created in a family that's got 25 family members all keeping, like here in the UK, all keeping it in because like dad can't manage a multi-sig, my sister can't, my brother could. But so we'll just do one together. How many rogue family members just fuck off and steal the money? Because we could have a lot of money between us. Yeah.
So is the example you give money to members of family that you don't trust and you worry that...
Maybe you do, but maybe they go rogue. What I'm saying is there's going to be a scenario where somebody is going to collude with somebody within a federation, say, we can steal this. I think there's a non-zero risk, and I think it would happen at some point. The incentive... You'll get a meeting of incentive and
I think
moral code.
I think the same risk happens with, and it happens more frequently, and the risk is higher with highly centralized third parties who are strangers who have no connection with you at all. So replacing the risk of,
I think you're reducing the risk, but not getting rid of it.
You're reducing the risk,
yeah.
and that's what we're aiming to do.
Okay, that makes sense.
But and to be very clear, the best is to use self-custody with multisig.
Yeah, of course.
That's the absolute best. And if you can do that, you should. But effectively, what happens with Fedimint is we're giving communities the ability, the 90% who can't do that, for reasons of technical complexity, cost, and just psychologically, because it's just frightening to do, a way to still have this best practice backup approach where it's of multisig, but with trade-offs applied for the community.
Well, you know what, Obi, the thing, it harks back to when I first, well, not first, I think second or third time I went down to El Salvador and I was in El Zonte. And you know what, most people there are poor. And a lot of people, their houses are basically a shack, like tin sides, and it's a shack. And I was thinking, all right, this is great. They've got Bitcoin now and I've got Bitcoin. But when I'm at home, I live in a house with bricks, with an alarm and security cameras. And if I want to set up a multi-sig, I can distribute my wallets to friends, family, banks. I can put in some pretty hardcore security. These people don't leave El Zonte much at all. And where are they going to, well, firstly, how are they going to get 3 Trezors or 3 ledgers? Where are they going to distribute them? Even in their own home, what are they going to do? Bury it in the mud under their bed? It's not set up. Multi-sig is great. Hardware wallet-based multi-sig is great for developed Western nations. In the developing world, it's no good. And so you've solved that problem, which I think is great.
And multi-sig is great, full stop. And what we've done is we've found a way of giving the other 90% access to the best practice. Yeah. So because we shouldn't then give them we should try and give them as close to possible to that. Now, because currently the alternatives, if you can't do full multi-sig, then go off and give it to a complete stranger. And we're suggesting this alternative that the community can come together to find the trusted members of the community, and then they can amortize the costs of this across the community. I
guess what I'm then thinking about, Danny, is who do I trust more? Do I trust Coinbase more than I trust the community? I think I trust Coinbase more on internal hacks. I trust the Federation more over regulatory and confiscation risk. Mm-hmm. There's different.
I guess the question is which risks are more of an issue for you. Maybe for you've come to the view that risk is lower for you. But to say in parts of the world where we are, and different people have different perspectives on this, but we have a level of freedom and reasonableness to a degree, and there's different views on this. You may form one view. But there are parts of the world, and it's actually the majority of the world, where there is a lack of freedom and a lack of reasonableness. And then you'll come to a very different view that the risk of confiscation is a clear and present risk.
It's a new option with different trade-offs.
And at that point they still deserve a solution.
Yeah, I get it. Okay.
And then also the risk you mentioned earlier, where there are certain bad actors and they can do certain things. Again, the way to solve that problem for bad actors is to give good actors tools that they can use to empower themselves to fight back, or to provide an alternative, so that they don't, because bad actors use the existing status quo as well to effectively control good actors.
Yeah.
We provide a tool to bring that control back into the hands of the communities or organizations that we want to deal with.
Yeah, it definitely makes more sense now. Yeah.
Do you think there'll always be community-sized federations, or do you think you'll get like company-sized ones where it might be, you know, like an Unchained, River, Swan, and NIDIG all setting up a federation?
I mean, I'm really excited to see what's going to come forward. But when you say company-sized, I think you'll see companies setting up federations for themselves, because companies have employees, they have expense accounts, they have treasuries, and so on. And right now, they use multiple third parties who charge fees and so on. They could instead bring that in-house. If it's easy enough to manage, which we can show you, they can bring that in-house and manage it themselves and reduce their costs and increase their reporting when they want, and the transfers can happen when they want it to happen, et cetera, without having to wait for weekends and evenings and so on.